Okay, good evening. Thank you for your patience. I call to order the representative town meeting for Wednesday, December 14th at 7 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Certainly will. Adams.
Here.
Bailey.
Here.
Burrell. Can we move that? Can't see. Burrell? Okay, I'll go on. Bright?
Here.
Casper?
Here.
Surf is not here. Chase?
Here.
Kopp is not here. Crockett Hubbard's not here. Dean Shinrot? I know you're online. I saw you earlier. You might have left. Oh, okay. Well, we'll come back to her. Eben?
Here.
Frickman?
Here.
Fritchie?
Here.
Gardner?
Here.
Gothier?
Here.
Gibbs?
Here.
Formerly Gwen Piero. Okay. Gustafson is absent. Hainline? I think she was going to be absent also. Hanscom?
Here.
Ivy?
Here.
Jacome?
Here.
Massett?
Here.
Merritt?
Here.
Norman?
Here.
Aubry?
Here.
Perry? Powers K?
Here.
Powers S?
Here.
Pacino?
Here.
Ray? Scott?
Here.
Cimarero? Thomas?
Here.
V.C. Williams? Watson?
Here.
Weaver? Wells? Wells?
Well, yes, here. Oh, I heard you have Watson.
Whitney?
Here.
And Rusk,
Here.
27. Did I miss anyone?
Just count 27.
Hmm?
What was the count? 27?
27.
No quorum?
That's a quorum.
That's a quorum? Okay.
Sure.
Thought it was 33.
20 is all we need. So.
Could we all please stand for a moment of
That's
silence?
that.
So is, so she just have to have 27.
Lots of people to play for.
Representative Adams, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Representative Adams.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
So what's, well, we said 33, didn't we? But then she said 28, then we have 27.
Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from our November 9th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion? Representative Adams, seconded by Representative Chase. Any corrections to the minutes? Okay, then that passes. Thank you. Public petitions. This is the portion of the RTM agenda where the RTM welcomes comments from the public. Each presentation should be limited to 5 minutes or as directed, and if possible, submit written comments. Presentation should be limited to matters pertinent to the town of Groton. The moderator or members through the moderator may ask questions only in order to clarify the speaker's presentation. Responses may be given to the moderator and or town manager. Individuals should state their name and address for the record, please. We have one person signed up, Mrs. Gookins.
Gookins?
Gookins.
Good evening.
It's not town.
I'm Margie Gookins, 26
Not town
Daniel
business.
Brown Drive, Mystic, Connecticut. Commissioner on CDAC Committee and mother to Councilor Franco. Tonight I'm here as a citizen, taxpayer, and voter of the town of Groton. Tonight I'm here on a very serious matter. I'm asking for a public censure of Representative Genevieve Cerf for the following reasons. On 5/3, after I spoke to the town council meeting, she proceeded to tell me how wrong I was. She just didn't have a different opinion in mine. She assured me that she was absolutely correct. 5/11, I came here to let you know her behavior was, in my opinion, unacceptable as an elected official. November 1st, I spoke at the town council meeting regarding the incident. I also asked that Councilor Bordelon and Baumgartner resign from the council for their behavior. November 1st, Representative Cerf spoke also at the town council. She was livid that I had asked her, quote, good friends, Andre and Portia, resign, unquote. She continued on shaming the victim and giving less than truthful information. When she finally finished ranting, she came to me where I sat, telling me, it's not personal, it's just politics. Lies and attacking a victim is no way for any elected official to behave. 11/9, Representative Cerf was extremely offensive to the hardworking people, men and women of Paquonic Bridge, by telling them they should have their homes raised and replaced so they can live in a, quote, nice place, unquote. 12/6, I spoke at the town council meeting again, speaking of bad behaviors of some town councilors. On 12/6, Representative Cerf spoke after me. Her diatribe said nothing that was truthful about me. There's no room for alternative facts in truth. She called me out by my name and then slandered me by insinuating that I was racially motivated. She again broke the rules by continuing to speak after her time was expired. That same night, Representative Cerf was so disruptive at the meeting that she interrupted another citizen as they spoke, as well as interrupted the meeting to the point that Mayor Melendez had to call a recess. I then heard from a friend that she again slandered me in a newspaper article. All of this behavior against a taxpayer can be found on GMTV. Please watch what I said versus what she portrayed as my words. Madam Moderator, I should be welcomed by all elected officials to speak before them. I have never faulted any elected official for any of their personal views, votes, or ideas. I have only spoke of bad behavior, which is, in fact, truthful. This personal attack on my character is not political. I'm not an elected official. I'm allowed to give my views. I'm allowed to tell the truth. I'm not going to ask again that she resign. That doesn't stop her bad behavior. I hope if I need a representative to stand and ask on my behalf for a censure, that at least one of you will stand with me. After all, it could be you she attacks next. Slandering any citizen, taxpayer, or voter should have serious consequences, and that's what I'm asking for. Thank you for your time and your service to our town, and I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Seeing none, we will go to receipt of communications unless there's any clarifying questions. Okay. Receipt of communications. Does anyone have communications they'd like to share? Anyone on Representative
me.
Massett? Thank you.
Representative Massett has her
Yes.
hand raised.
Go ahead.
Just a point of clarification, actually two, or a question of clarification. We do not, as a body, have a censure rule. Do we? I don't think we do.
I don't believe we do also, but I will look
And
that up.
And
I will look it up in Robert's rules also.
Okay, and my second question is, Can someone from the body make a referral? And does that referral have to be in writing?
A referral for a censure?
A referral, if we don't have a rule, given the way that things have been going, I honestly and truly think we need to have a censure rule.
So you can absolutely make a referral to request that go to the Rules Committee.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question.
Go ahead.
At the last meeting I attended, I asked if we could look into whether we could have a sergeant at arms at the meeting.
I will address that at the end. Yep,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am. Anything else? Okay, any receipt of communications? Representative Obrey, do you have something else, or did you just leave your hand up?
I thought I put it down, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Anybody else? So I did get a letter from Representative Surf, which I believe was sent to all of you. It reads as follows. Dear RTM, oh, and she is out today. I'm sorry, she's out sick. I forgot to mention that, as well as Representative Hainline couldn't make it, Representative Cupp, Representative Perry, Representative Gustafson, and Representative Lynn Crockett-Hubbard. So this email reads, Dear RTM colleagues, I'm writing this email at our moderator Jill Rusk's suggestion for being the most direct way to apologize for the remark I made at our last RTM meeting about redeveloping the Quantic Bridge neighborhood. First, let me point out that I was mistaken about the status of the neighborhood, as I thought the properties were mostly rentals and that people renting might be amenable to switching to a village-type design with a mix of small shops, housing for young singles, family dwellings of various sizes, and for retired people who want to downsize to a village-type environment, as I did by moving into an apartment in downtown Mystic. I've known quite a few people who have rented in Quantic Bridge and have been quite happy there, so I was not implying in any way that these properties were a problem. Further, when I first moved back to Groton and was elected to the RTM in the early 2000s, I remember that Joe Burrill had started a long but eventually very successful lobby for a blight ordinance, and that I had supported his initiative as much as my fledgling political skills allowed me to. I have long considered Joe a friend, and for this reason I would never even think of disrespecting the neighborhood to which he has been so committed. So I apologize if my thoughts came out awkwardly and didn't do justice to my intent. Redevelopment, as in the case of Madison CT's downtown, can often lead to wonderful outcomes, but only when the community is united in wanting it. Again, my apologies, and here's hoping I didn't say another stupid thing in the future, or I don't say another stupid thing in the future. Very sincerely, Jen Surf. All right. Representative Obrey, still same hand up? Or do you have other communications? It's okay. Okay, seeing none, I will move on to the town manager, who I believe is on. Is the town manager on? I know he wasn't feeling.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I think Representative Obrey has her hand up. She just didn't realize she's muted.
Oh, no, I think she wanted it down. Did you want it down? You're
She's
muted.
trying to speak. Well, you're muted, Representative Obrey.
Her hand never went down.
Thank you, John. Here it says lower hand, and I'm doing that, and,
And you're good. You got it now.
okay.
Sorry
Thank
about
you
that.
all.
Yeah.
Okay, so town manager Byrd.
Evening, everyone. If I start coughing, forgive me. Second time having bronchitis this year. My wife's watching. Thank you very much for giving it to me. Excuse me. Financial reports. Preliminary fund balance as of June 30th, 22, 31.9 million, which is 23% of the 22 general fund adopted budget. And as if you may recall, we're expecting to use, I think, somewhere around 3.5 million of that fund balance this year. General contingency budget was appropriated at 300,000. We still have not tapped into that. And capital reserve fund balance is estimated at 1 million. A couple updates: American Rescue Plan Act. You may have seen some of the discussions going on with the council. Planning staff is just sent out some follow-up questions to the, I think it's 52 applicants. Responses due next week, and then the council will be scheduling what I believe will be a special account dedicated just to ARPA, likely in January, to discuss the applications. Branford Manor, Mayor Hedrick and I continue to have weekly meetings with Related, as well as monthly meeting with HUD, and constant other calls and emails during the time, pretty much every day. At the January 10 COW, you will see Kenton Frost present some ideas on potential uses for Claude Chester, so tune into that. The library just went fine-free, so if you are late with a book, you will not be fined. That sort of became a trend nationwide during COVID. People didn't know when you could drop books off, et cetera, and to make it so it didn't disenfranchise people, they started generally just not collecting the fines. Now, if you lose a book or damage it, you will be fined for that, just not late fees. North Stonington Road Bridge, the town's legislators were on the agenda last night for the council. One of the things that came up from the town council was North Stonington Road Bridge, again, wanting to look at getting that fully funded. Public Works is working with our consultant to update the costs, and I already have Danielle Cheeseborough, the first select woman from Stonington, scheduled to come to the January 10th meeting, so I've reached out to her to see if we could also talk about the bridge. So I would expect that to be on the January 10th agenda. Parks and Recreation and Public Works are working with an architect on design changes for the former Fitch Middle, trying to wrap that up hopefully in the next 2 months, I think. Let's see. Planning, they've applied for $330,000 for a Track 2 Climate Resilience Fund DEEP grant to do a flood study for Aquatic Bridge area, similar to what's being done in Mystic. So hopefully they will get that. Let's see. You may notice, or may not, the subway sign along the highway was getting a little worn. Paint was peeling off, and there were some tree limbs blocking it. Public Works painted it and cleared out the tree limbs, so it looks much better. Resilience, Megan Granado, our sustainability manager, she's applied for $200,000 Deep Climate Resilience Fund grant for a climate action plan. Solar panels, kind of excited about this. Excuse me, my hearing's like, I'm totally clogged, I can barely hear. An RFP was issued this week to install, operate, and maintain solar panels at the Town Hall Annex and Police Department complex. The panels would be carport or canopy style units installed in the parking areas. There's also an alternate to the bid to install battery storage for the police station. Proposal is due back on January 18th, and if it did work out, it would go through the Council, Planning and Zoning Commission, and RTM as part of the process. And the Wolfbrook property, the Watch House property, that's we've got the funds in, sign off from the state. Just now everybody's signing the final paperwork. Should be done in the next few days. So that's finally wrapped up, or about to wrap up. And that's what I have.
Thank you, Town Manager. Any questions? Representative Gardner.
John, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you have to make an appointment to go to the land records office?
My office.
Actually, the town clerk, since it falls under her purview, would be the better one to answer that.
Am I allowed to ask that here?
Sure, of course. No, I heard the question. I'll explain that to you. So we have limited staff in our town records right now, and also with personal issues with health concerns. So we're trying to keep the office as carefree, germ-free. So if you had that office open, we could have 7 or 8 people trying to use the 4 terminals that we have for public. And people get upset, and they're hanging around, and they're waiting, and they're breathing, you know, so for everyone's benefit, it's working very well, too. You know, we haven't had any problem with anyone, you know, not being able to come in, so.
Okay. Well, I did have a constituent ask about that, so I was curious, wouldn't it make more sense to just limit it to 1 person at a time? Because,
Well, you'd have to keep the door closed, which is, you know, because you can't, if the door is open, you know, people are just gonna come in and use,
okay, is the door open or closed?
it's closed, and we make appointments, and then we, you know, when people wanna come in, they knock on the door, and they go. So, it works
Okay.
pretty well. I mean, you know,
Okay.
you know, anyone can call to talk to me, you know, or come, my office is located in Vital Records, which is wide open, so.
Right, I know your office is wide open.
Yeah.
And several
And
people have
Land
been in
Records
there.
is my office also, but because of, you know, anyone who goes in there, they'll understand. It's a very narrow hallway, you know, in the front, and then in the back where the computer terminals are, it's also a very narrow hallway. So you're right on top of each other, so,
Okay, so this was done since COVID?
yeah.
But isn't COVID over?
COVID's not over,
No, it's not?
not by a long shot.
Okay. So this could go on for years, right?
I hope not. I'm hoping that we'll all become immune and we won't have this issue, so.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have a question? Yes, Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. For the town manager, I'm just curious to know some details about the Branford Manor situation. And specifically, I'm aware that the 30-day default period has passed, and it has yet to be put back on the agenda for the town council. And I have not seen, I've gotten some of the updates that you've sent out, but those updates are rather scant of detailed information. I'd be curious to see a spreadsheet of unit-by-unit breakdowns of what the issues were per unit, and what was done to address them, or what was done to grant an extension. Because at this point, the 30-day period has passed, and it seems that there is some sort of extension that's been granted, but it's not been provided, no information has been provided as to like what exactly they've done to fulfill that expectation.
Sure, and I've actually got some information I'm going to send out in my report tonight. However, the 30 days is not triggered yet, so they have not defaulted on the 30 days. The way the resolution the town council and the city council each passed was if they don't fulfill what Ledge Light and the city give for dates to fix things, or if through the extension, then the 30 days kicks in. So they've not even, that has not been triggered in any way. I can send you the information on that. But the mayor has scheduled them for January 24th for an update to the council. And I will send some more detailed info out in my report.
Appreciate that. Would there be a spreadsheet in that, as far as a detailed spreadsheet of what units and what violations?
I actually do have an updated one for a real recent one for Ledge Light. I don't have one for the city, though. The issues through there aren't as numerous, or as at least as, you know, the mold stuff is involved there. But I can ask Mayor Hedrick if there's anything he can provide.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Massett. You're muted. Representative Massett, you're muted.
Thank you. For the town manager, Branford Manor is partially subsidized by HUD.
No.
Now, does HUD have a separate, like, time frame for things being fixed in their facilities, or does the 30-day time frame that the town and the city have take precedence over HUD?
Now, HUD, the way they work, like I said, we do monthly meetings with them, as well as Senator Blumenthal's office. The way they work is if they were to put them into default, they have a 30-day cure period.
Okay.
But they will not do that likely unless one of us terminates an agreement. That is what they've told us. But they meet weekly, I believe, with Related, and they need to see sufficient progress, though. So let's say, though, they were just not getting anywhere, that might change everything, and they might speed things up to put them in default. But as of right now, that's the latest. They
Okay,
have not
thank you.
defaulted them.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, we will move on to Representative Sean Powers and the Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Really close.
We had a special meeting agenda minutes for December 12th, 7 p.m. Called to order at 7:05. Representatives Chase, Fritchie, Jacome, Norman, Gardner, Scott, Powers, and Moderator Rusk were present. The new business that we discussed was 3.1, 2022-719-3, Connecticut Community Investment Fund, Round 2. Representative Jacome read the entire resolution into the record for the submittal of the DECD Round 2 Community Investment Grant Program funding. Director Reiner was present, and the grant resolution and explained the funding process for receiving the grant from the state, the types of usage of the funds along with the types of transformational projects to the town. The committee asked a variety of questions on sale prices, the properties, the cost of remediation, the tax abatement to future developers of the clean sites once this money is funded and takes care of the remediation part. If there would be any tax abatements to future developers of the clean site from the remediation, if there were any town matching funds, if any of the any future grants, we talked about that. The minimum grant amount was discussed. Continued negotiations for the Groton Heights project. That was explained with the contract and the purchase and sales agreement. The reasoning behind the accepting of the grant funding, the site's availability dates to become part of the tax base. We discussed the TVCCA child care facility, and if Director Reiner's here, he'll give you a better explanation. We own the property, they own the building, so that funding is a little bit different for the grant money. The designation of distressed community was explained and how it enables us to get our funding for the town. Chairman Powers asked for a call for a vote. 7 were in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstained. A motion to adjourn was Representative Chase, seconded by Norman, and we adjourned at 7:46 p.m.
Are there any corrections to the minutes? Representative Gardner, or Gauthier, sorry. It's a G, I'm sorry.
Do I need to talk about this? Yes, in the discussion paragraph, point number 4, the reasoning behind accepting the grant funding, there I think you mean accepting ACCEPT. And in this
Yes.
case, it's a substantive kind of change.
Pardon
Yeah.
my corrections.
But that definitely needs to be
I-
changed because accepting means, not taking it.
And
It means the exact opposite. So.
like I said, I rushed through all of this.
No
and
worries.
I'm glad I got it done.
Representative Eben.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I had actually emailed the town clerk because there were numerous errors, not in what was said, but in the written. I think there's transfer animal, and so lots of typos and errors. So it was actually hard for me to understand, and it would be useful if we could have the resolution read here at this meeting as well. I would just assume it would be included in the minutes, but it wasn't.
We will read that as soon as we get through the minutes. Thank you.
So I'm sorry to keep going, but I'm hoping that there could be a revision of those minutes because I don't feel comfortable voting for them as I read them this afternoon. Thank you.
We're not voting on the minutes, but we will get a revised copy out with, Madam Clerk, can you just send those out?
As soon as I get it, yeah.
That's what I mean. Thank you. Okay, seeing none, we will approve the minutes as corrected. And
We don't vote on it. We're just accepting them.
we're accepting them as corrected, yes. would you like to read the resolution, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Resolution endorsing the submittal of an application to the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development, DECD, for Round 2 of the Connecticut Community Investment Fund, CIF, grant program, and to authorize the town manager to execute all grant documents and accept grant funding for said grant. Whereas pursuant to Section 112 of Public Act 21-111, the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development is authorized to extend financial assistance for economic development projects, and whereas it is desirable and in public interest that the town of Groton make an application to the state for $6 million in order to undertake the Groton Heights remediation and former Pleasant Valley School remediation and demolition, and to execute an assistant agreement, now therefore be it resolved by the Groton Town Council, 1, that is cognizant of the conditions of the prerequisites for the state financial assistance imposed by Section 112 of Public Act 21-111. 2, that the filling of an application for the state financial assistance by the town of Groton in an amount not to exceed $6 million is hereby approved, and that John Burt, town manager, is directed to execute and file such application with the Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development to provide such additional information, to execute such other documents as may be required, to execute an assistant agreement with the state of Connecticut for state financial assistance if such an agreement is offered, to execute any amendment, decision, and revision thereto, and to act as the authorized representative of the town of Groton, and may it further be resolved that the Groton Town Council supports the submission of an application to the Community Investment Fund grant by the TVCCA for up to $12 million for TVCCA's new building construction.
Is there a move?
I so move.
So
Motion?
moved.
So a motion made by Representative Sean Powers, seconded by Representative Jacome. We have we have John Reiner here, thanks, to Director Reiner to answer any questions. Representative Merritt.
Yes, I've heard bits and pieces about this TVCCA building, and that is in the area of one of the 2 parks in Fort Hill Homes that the public now uses whenever they can. $12 million, that's quite some building for that area. I'd like to know just how big it's going to be, and is it going to take up any of the park that is there now?
Director Reiner, do you want to give us an overview? And then if you can answer Representative Merritt's question in that also, please.
Sure. Thank you very much, everyone, for having me here tonight. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, good. All right, so there's actually 2 grants that we, the town, are going to be applying for, or 2 different projects that we'll be applying for as part of this grant. One of those being for Pleasant Valley, the other one being for Groton Heights, and I'll talk a little bit more detail about each of those. Initially, we were going to be working with TVCCA and applying for a grant on their behalf, but after corresponding and meeting with the state, they had recommended that the TVCCA grant would be served better and have a higher chance of being funded if they applied for it themselves. So we're not applying for the TVCCA grant. Right now the town council is working on a lease agreement with TVCCA for continuing, and John Burt could probably speak to this a little bit better than me, but I know enough of the details to basically continue the lease that they already have, that they've been leasing from the town. So it's utilizing the existing lease footprint that they already have. They are looking to demolish the existing building they have and build a new one to meet the needs of now and the future of what their demands are. So that's TVCCA, their own separate application. For the 2 applications that we're doing for the town of Groton, one of those would be for Groton Heights for the remediation and cleanup of that site, of the inside of the building and some exterior work. We are still working with Thayer Mahan. We do not yet have a signed purchase and sales agreement with them. The current draft of the purchase and sales agreement is subject to the town getting this grant. Initially, when we were moving forward with Thayer Mahan, they had thought the cleanup and remediation costs of the building were going to be much less, but many years of mold, lack of heating in the building, and deterioration sent the remediation and repair costs on to the inside of the building up to a very high number. We are working with Thayer Mahan to get an updated number from them, but we're expecting that remediation cost to be somewhere in the vicinity of $2 million or a little bit more. For Pleasant Valley School, we worked with the council and talked about some options there. And really, if the town wants to move forward with the redevelopment of that site, which would require the demolition of the school and some other buildings on the property, and any remediation and environmental cleanup that's there, we're expecting that number to come in somewhere in the over $3 million range. So we're giving ourselves a little bit of buffer. We're still finalizing some costs on the cleanup of the Pleasant Valley School. Something that came up a number of times when we were talking to the council specifically about Pleasant Valley was, well, what does this mean for the future development? We know at some point in time the town wanted to see that property redeveloped. It went through the public disposition process, and currently the town council is working on a new RFP process and how they want to move forward with future reuse of properties. So that's something that's still hanging out there that the town council needs to act on in order for us to formally dispose of the property to pick a development. But any new RFP that we would put out, obviously there'd be some public input on that prior to it going out, as well as we heard loud and clear the last time around that people in the surrounding neighborhoods want playgrounds and some other outdoor space that would be utilized for not just people living in the development, but also for people surrounding there. So those are some things that will get worked into any future RFP. Again, that's just subject to us actually getting this funding. I should also talk briefly about the Community Investment Fund. This is the second round of this grant. I believe there'll be 8 or 9 total rounds of this grant, each one giving out approximately $100 million. The state is looking for truly transformational projects. So not just, hey, let's build some new ball fields, let's do some basic renovations or improvements to something that we need, but something that's gonna really transform an area and also drive economic and community development. So these are the first projects that we're putting forward. We do plan on submitting numerous additional grant requests in the future, and I'm sure we'll be talking to the RTM and council about those as the next few years go on. There were a few questions that had come up at the RTM Finance Committee meeting. One is the Groton Heights School within the enterprise zone. It is not located within the enterprise zone. At this point in time, there have been no requests from Groton Heights looking for any type of tax abatement on the property. One thing that was discussed in the initial talks and is even mentioned or called out in the purchase and sales agreement draft for Groton Heights would be the utilization of the Economic Development Assistance Fund. That may or may not be necessary if we get this grant, but that's something that is still out there. Nothing has been approved. That would have to be run through the council and approved by the council. And lastly, our current estimates after the first phase of construction, Groton Heights would pay somewhere around $50,000 a year in taxes just with the existing school if they renovated that and had their facility in there. Happy to answer any more specific questions. But, you know, this is really us taking an opportunity to get some grant funding for the remediation and cleanup of 2 properties, which today are both eyesores, and getting them ready for redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Gauthier?
Thank you. So the first point, just more of a kind of Robert's rules situation. If our motion included language about TVCCA and the $12 million, I am going to forward a friendly amendment to the motion to remove the language regarding TVCCA and the 12 million?
Is there a reason, John, is there a reason either Director Reiner or John Bird, is there a reason why that is still in there?
It probably shouldn't have come to the RTM. It was solely to show support of TVCA by the town council, but it's not necessary in any way.
Okay, and so does its inclusion, I mean, that's directing planning to put that in, right?
It's supporting it.
It's supporting it?
It's supporting it. That the town of Groton Council supports the submission of an application to the Community Investment Fund grant by the TVCCA for up to $12 million for TVCCA's new building.
Okay, so it doesn't need to be amended. Okay, clear that point then. Moving on to questions about the Pleasant Valley application. So I watched all the meetings kind of regarding this, and one of the things you had mentioned, Mr. Reiner, was that 20% somehow wrapped up in this application, 20% of that's going to be automatically cordoned off for affordable housing. Is that written into your application to this grant? How is that included into the application so far? Is that part of the requirement?
So the state does require for future affordable housing developments, we haven't fully committed to a 20% number. The council did ask, I think there were some concerns on both sides. We've been hearing a lot of discussion about the need for affordable housing and what that number is. The state does have some requirements for affordable housing, for housing that's associated with this grant.
So every application under this grant has to include some kind of affordable housing, or
No,
just the
not
kind you're going
every
after for Pleasant
application.
Valley?
No, not every application. Application for housing, it's something that the state is encouraging, is there. And if we do not include affordable housing, we would have to seek a waiver for not having any affordable housing associated with a development project for this.
So kind of to echo some of Councilor Franco's comments on it, doesn't that predetermine what's on the RFP for this property before going to the community? And if you don't think it does, then why not?
I do think that when we put this property out to bid, what we saw was all proposals for multifamily housing. The zoning on the property is multifamily housing. So unless we change the zoning on the property, the future development of this property will include some level of multifamily housing. And I think we've all heard about the need for affordable housing. The town just put forth an affordable housing plan, which was required by the state. And one of the recommendations is that DECD has an affordable housing policy that for this grant, that if a project involves residential units, they are looking for at least 10% of those units to fall within certain affordability criteria, or depending on income, or 20% of units if it's another certain percentage of income. So they're looking for affordable housing. We know there's a need for affordable housing. So there would be a little bit of a predetermined, if we want to go after, this multi-million dollars to demolish the building, that we're acknowledging also that we need affordable housing, and some could go on this property, or some will go on this property.
And the solicitation that you're basing that response to is one that didn't have any community input on it when it first went out?
Sorry, the solicitation.
So the solicitation that you said you got only, multifamily responses for, that didn't have any community input in it when it first went out, right? So,
I
and
would
you
not agree with that.
you specifically solicited for multifamily housing?
No, we did not specifically solicit for multifamily housing. We indicated what the zoning was on the RFP.
Okay, and then my other question is, you had said, I think it was in the finance committee meeting, that part of the RFP could include the option for developers to create a playground or park for community use on their own dime. In your opinion, actually is the likelihood of that, given that developers are going to try to maximize their ROI, and you're already restricting up to 20% of the affordable, of the space to affordable housing? What is the actual likelihood of that?
If that's what the town wants, that's what the town will get. All the town has to do is write that into the RFP, and if somebody doesn't include it, then they're not going to be deemed to do this.
And so the only reason we are putting the affordable housing restriction on this is competitiveness of the grant? Could we maybe put in the grant without that restriction on it?
We could ask for a waiver. I think the likelihood of this being funded would be pretty low. And again, I, as your Director of Planning and Development, looking at our housing needs and listening to what's happening at meetings, we need more affordable housing in Groton. That's a great need. And unless we demand that developers do it, it's going to be something that's going to be difficult to get.
Okay, and just a question about the actual grant kind of program. Is there a plan to include Mary Morrison in any of that in the future? That's the third elementary school in District 4 that, you know,
Just
is
to
closed.
mention, Mary Morrison is not under town control. It's retained by the Board of Ed for future uses. So there's no plans from Board of Ed to turn it over to the town.
Okay. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Representative Bailey?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I just have one question. Is there going to be or will be any financial obligation for the town to receive these grants?
There's no financial obligation other than our staff time administering the grants.
So no matching funds.
No
Thank you very
matching
much.
funds are required. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Representative Eben?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I had two questions. You know, I'm just curious if there's going to be retained any public access to the properties, both those properties?
That's for Groton Heights. That's not necessarily the plan to have public access to that property, although there will be a land, if that project moves forward in its current iteration, there will be a land transfer between Groton Heights and the Bill Memorial Library for a little bit of a land swap there. For Pleasant Valley, it all depends on how the town council drafts up the RFP.
Okay, and I was just wondering if there could be a reservation for, you know, recreational opportunities for youth, say basketball or some type of playground, because I know that that's lacking in some of these areas, and that these are kind of de facto recreational areas that are used now.
Yeah. I think for Pleasant Valley, the best way would be for the town to identify what it is we're looking for at a minimum. And this is going to be a highly competitive piece of property, Pleasant Valley. When the town ever puts it back out to bid, we get requests all the time for what's happening with it from developers. So there's a great need for that property. So with that high level of competition, we can ask for a number of things and make the developers pay for it, make them do the improvements, and give that land back to the town, or not purchase, or, you know, that portion, we can carve some of that land out. But again, it all depends on how the council wants to draft that RFP.
And I have a second question. I'm just curious what the nature of the hazards to be remediated in those schools are.
Let's see, PCBs, lead, mold. There's some environmental reports that have been done on both of those properties. Some phase 1 and I believe some phase 2 environmental assessments. I believe, if memory serves correct, those are all on the town's webpage.
So no asbestos then?
Oh, no, and asbestos, yep. There's a number of things in each of them. There's a lot to clean up.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Just
You're
for
welcome.
clarification, can you let us know where we can find that on the town webpage, please?
Sure, it should be under the planning department. I think there's an excess properties page that has a number of links and documents to all of the properties that we're discussing for public disposal.
Thank you. Representative Merritt?
Yes, I still want to get back to Central Avenue and TVCCA. To me, that $12 million is an awful lot for a building in that area. And it almost seems like that's going to physically take away some of the park property. Is it or is it not? Have they filed building plans with the town yet?
We don't have building plans. We do not have architectural or planning site plans yet. It's something that they're working on. They will need to take any improvements to the site, be through the Planning and Zoning Commission, any other boards or commissions. And I think John just jumped back on camera. He can talk to the lease because whatever land area they're leasing, that's what they're leasing.
Right. And we're still negotiating the lease, and part of that will be a required public hearing, so it's going to take some time. But we're still reviewing language. It's going to be a little while. However, what I will do is they gave a presentation to the town council recently. I'll send out that presentation to everyone, as well as a link to that meeting and the time of that meeting, so you can see them actually present it. And as I said, there will be time. There's going to be a public hearing on this, and there'll be some. It's not going to be happening anytime immediately.
I have noted in the past there's been a couple of projects in town where the monies were requested and approved without any bids submitted, any plans for the usage of the money, and it just comes to a blank end. There's no answer. This is a lot of money for that area. It's more than the remediation of 2 schools in our town. Am I correct?
And this, correct, for the remediation, not for the complete reconstruction. For Pleasant Valley, we'd be looking to remediate and demolish the building. TVCCA is looking to demolish their buildings and build new structures.
But that's twice as much as the 2 schools together. What are they planning on?
As I mentioned, we're probably getting beyond the point of going afoul of FOIA without having a vote added to the agenda. I will send the information, and I could actually hook you up with Deb Monahan at TVCCA to answer questions. But I will tell you, what they have planned would add a lot of programming space to Groton and help a lot of people out. But I'll get you everything I have, Representative Mayor.
Okay.
And the whole RTM. I'll send it to everybody.
Thank you. Representative Aubry.
I just wanted to ask a question on the fact that I have the greatest respect for TVCCA and what it does and the good that it does. But was there ever a conversation about maybe using money to restore part of the empty school across the street and refurbish that rather than building a new building? I mean, it would save money, save time, and maybe use some of that school that everybody's trying to make plans for around it. It seemed to me like a no-brainer, but I could be the no-brainer.
That has been discussed at times, but the TVCCA council, this was their direction as of this time. But maybe they won't get the funding. Maybe they'll have to come back to the drawing table.
Yeah, well, I just think that it would be something that would be good as we're working with the public to find out what they would like to have over there, that maybe that be a consideration also. You know, there's parts of that school, to me, are perfectly good and could be used. It might be used for another reason, but that should, to me, that should be in the equation as you're talking about it. Thank you.
All right, Representative Gauthier.
Thank you. So still trying to understand the Pleasant Valley grant. Mr. Reiner, say we receive the grant money, are we able to immediately proceed to demolish the buildings and remediate? Or is there another step that we have to wait for before we start that process?
So I just need to make sure what all the immediate in government aren't things that always necessarily go hand in hand, because there's going to be a lot of paperwork. The state's going to require any remediation and demolition will have to be bid. according to all the state procurement requirements, and there are certain procurement requirements as part of this grant. So those are all things that we'll have to work through. Again, the state, they've only issued one round of this funding so far. So we want to look at the time frame that we have to spend the money and how the council wants to move forward, if they want to move forward with remediation and demolition, or if they want to include as part of the RFP process that, you know, quote unquote, we have $3.5 million, whatever the number is, that can be utilized for it and wait. So again, there's a number of things that we still need direction from the council on how they want to best proceed.
So we don't necessarily need to tie this to securing a developer for the site? The demolition of the buildings, I mean, I'm sorry.
Really are.
In the short term, no, but if we demolished and remediated the site and then turned it all into playgrounds, when we said instead that we were making the site ready for multifamily housing development, we'd have to pay the money back. And we'd have a big black eye on our face in the eyes of the state for any future grants.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of accepting the resolution and approving the application of this grant, please say aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
online, if you can raise your hand either
Physically or
physically or,
a little yellow?
okay,
I can't see Jackie. Oh, she's got a yellow hand.
okay. And everyone, okay, if you can put your hands down, please. Anyone opposed? Representative Gauthier? Any abstentions? So that-
Abstention.
So that passes
We have
28.
28.
So 26 to 1 to 1. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Director Reiner.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
True, John.
We are moving on to liaison reports. Representative Jacome.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. The Town Council met for their regular monthly meeting on December 6th at 6:30. There were several citizens' petitions and comments concerning an incident between Ledge Light and an elected official, Branford Manor, support for applicants on the ABCs, town development policy, and a Pfizer court case. Some of the things discussed was the ARPA parameters and the next step forward, which both Johns mentioned, which asking more questions to the applicant and dedicating a cow to it. The council also passed the community investment funds, which we passed here. They also approved and rejected various appointments and reappointments, and they also approved their regular meeting for Cal and the regular, and their personnel and appointments. And their next meeting is January 3rd at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Aubrey, do you have a report?
No, I'm sorry, no meeting, no report.
Thank you. Representative Eben?
No meeting, no report.
Thank you. And our other liaisons have already expressed that they had no meetings and no report. We are moving on to budget discussions. Is there anything? No. And other business. Does anyone have other business tonight? Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. So as many may recall, during the October 12th RTM meeting, there was an exchange between Representative Massett, Moderator Rusk, and myself, which at one point involved me raising my voice and breaking the decorum of the meeting. And in regards to that moment of conflict, I just wanted to offer my apologies to the moderator, to Representative Massett, and to the whole body of the RTM. Apologize for raising my voice and resisting the call to order, both of which are acts in violation of Rule 8.5 in regards to decorum. There is no excuse for the action. However, there is an explanation as far as what I was trying to articulate was a desire to speak under Rule 8.7, which states, if any member in speaking or otherwise transgresses the rules and orders of the RTM, the moderator shall call them to order. The member will be allowed to justify their act or discussion. Then, if accepted by the moderator, they will continue. If not, they will be seated. So what I was trying to ask for was just the opportunity to speak to justify my act or discussion that was subject to a point of order. Understand that, you know, there's no call for me to raise my voice. It was a moment of a minor act of civil disobedience and ill-considered. So I apologize again to the moderator, Representative Massett, and the body as a whole. Thank you.
Is there anything else under other business? All right, Representative Massett.
I would like to accept Representative Thomas's apology.
Okay, anything else? Okay, I also accept your apology. We all have times. My two things, I've been asked to look at a sergeant at arms and a censure rule, so I'm going to send that to the Rules Committee, Representative Watson, and let the Rules Committee decide how that one will go
You're
forward.
welcome.
And we will look at that in the future. Anything else? Seeing nothing else, I will take a motion to adjourn. We've got a first and a second. Adams and Gardner. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays, folks. See you next year.
Holidays, everybody.
See you next year. 8/23.
Show my friends what?
Recording stopped.